Hello everybody, and you're very welcome back to the channel. So last week we had the first half of our top 10 tractors from the noughties. So tractors, the general purpose tractors. So tractors around the 150, 200 horsepower mark, something around that general purpose all round tractor. So we had the Fendt 820, the Massey Ferguson 6480, John Deere 6930, we had the Case IH-MX135, and we had the Valtra 6550 High Tech. So this week I have another five that I'm going to run through really quick. And first of all, to everyone who commented, everyone who liked, and everyone who subscribed from last week, thank you very much. There was great comments last week on all the different models of tractors, people's experience with them, and people who threw in a few of their own favourites, some of which we might be covering here today. And to everybody who commented on, what device they were watching, and it's much appreciated. I have some really good information that I'm building up now, so we're going to get straight into it, no delays. So the next one, it's not number 6, this is just the next one. This is the next one on my list. These are all in no particular order. They're not going from 1 to 5, or they're not going from 1 to 10. They're just a collection of 10 of my best. So the next one is the Deutz Agrotron 1657. So when Deutz launched the Agrotron in 1995, its bubble-shaped cab and sloping bonnet gave it a widely futuristic appearance that wasn't to everyone's taste. The electrics were also a little bit ahead of their time. But once the new Agrotron came out in 2004, the looks had softened, the electrics were sorted, and the mechanicals were pretty much rock solid. Buyers have now cottoned on to it, and they're getting harder to find them. So they are an in-demand tractor because they are very reliable. They have a super engine. Transmission is pretty good, although it does give a couple of little issues. A few issues with bearings and stuff in the gearbox that I have a little bit of experience with. So the 1657 is arguably the pick of the bunch, featuring the Deutz 7.1 litre engine that's tuned to put out 160 horsepower. So this, combined with an efficient 24-speed semi-power shift transmission plus a creeper box, means that they pull like a train and very little can go wrong with them. Top speed is 50 kilometers an hour, and they came with a high standard spec that included air brakes. The only downside to these tractors, especially from my point of view, is that they have a weak air conditioning system, and even back in the noughties, even now, the more modern ones still have a very poor air conditioning system, and no matter what you do to it, you can never seem to get a really cold Deutz cab for some reason. The cab is also a little bit noisy, so there's a hum in the cab, there's a vibration in the cab of these tractors. They are a little bit noisy, and some of the ergonomics in the cab is a little bit questionable. So some of the procedures you have to go through to unlock the hydraulics and safety systems, when you get in, I always said, when you get into the cab of a Deutz, forget about let alone the colouring scheme, the yellows and the reds and the greens, buttons everywhere. It's a little bit, you just have to reset your brain when you get into the cab of a Deutz, especially after getting out of something like a John Deere or a Fendt or that. The Deutz just did take a little bit of getting used to. The cab was probably definitely their weak point. It did get hot in the cab. The ergonomics weren't great, but look, you could put up with that because those who were willing to prioritize power and reliability over drive comfort. Other than that, there's little to dislike. So also popular is the smaller 150 model that was available with the same 7.1 litre engine, or a smaller 6-cylinder unit to produce a little bit less torque. And buyers can tell which one is fitted by the 0.6 or the 0.7 after the model number. At the larger end of the spectrum then, we had the Agrotron 187. It also had the 7.1 litre engine. This time it was tuned out to 180 horsepower. Production continued until 2007, when the range was replaced by the less successful Agrotron M. These were fitted with the 6.1 litre Deutz power plant, as used the same engine that's used by Fendt, and a couple of other manufacturers use it as well. So prices for these tractors now, yeah, of course, as well, they are going up. They're in demand, something around the €35,000 mark for a good, clean example with reasonable hours on it. So next tractor up we have on the list, and it's a tractor brand, I suppose, that we've spoken about before, and a model that we've spoken about before, is the JCB Fast Track at 2170. So early JCB Fast Tracks, they weren't easy to live with. They were heavy, had heavy dry clutches and an awful steering lock, and some questionable wiring meant they had very little appeal. However, by the mid-2000s, the firm had come up with a formula that really, really worked, and the 2155 and the 2170 were the last fast tracks to feature the mechanical transmission that they matured into a solid and versatile tractor that's very high in demand. Both models are identical, save for the engine ECU mapping, which gave the 2155 around 160 horsepower and the 2170 171 horsepower. However, most have been tampered with that we have spoken about before and over the time, so that they now deliver considerably more power than stock, a lot of them. The reason for this, of course, is that fantastic 6.7 litre Cummins QSB engine that's simple, tough, and as tough as old boots. Unlike many tractors of this era, it has a basic fixed geometry turbo and little in the way of emissions reducing paraphernalia. The only nod to modernity is the common rail injection system. Just one transmission option was available, an Eaton Fuller truck type gearbox featuring 6 gears with 3 splitters, which is mated to a 3-speed JCB range box. Drivers have to do a lot of shifting to get the most from it, but it has plenty of ratios and it is very reliable. The smooth shift clutch is also a considerable improvement over the old dry versions, both in terms of usability and reliability. 4-wheel steer was optional, and tractors fitted will sell for a premium. The paintwork is also pretty poor, so most will need some touching up to keep them, looking clean and tidy, especially when they get to the age, 15, 20 years of age. The tractors had a 7-year production run before being replaced by that famous 4000 series. And again, as we spoke about before in our JCB video, prices of them now, they are demanding big money. I suppose probably from the mid 50s up to around the €60,000 mark for good clean examples again. And anyone that is interested in the JCBs, if you're a JCB fan and you haven't seen our JCB video, we do have a great JCB video with a JCB expert. Actually, we're out looking at a couple of tractors, so go and check that out. So next on my list is a green and yellow one again. It is the John Deere 7820. So around this time, the appetite for US built John Deere tractors from the 2000s is stronger than ever, with the venerable 7810 top of many buyers' wish lists. So the 7810 was a 175 horsepower workhorse featuring Deere's iconic 8.1 litre Waterloo engine, and its reputation for basic raw power had elevated to near mythical status. It's no longer simply a working machine with collectors gobbling to get the best examples and driving up prices. As a result, many are now turning to its 7020 series successors, particularly the 7820. This tractor has a lot in common with the 7810, featuring the 8.1 litre engine, same engine, which was tweaked a little bit to give a maximum of 197 horsepower in standard form. And a lot of people are wondering, why don't I have the 7810 here? Because the 7810 was built up until 2003. Well, while the 7810 is a fantastic tractor, very, very reliable, superb engine, matched with a power quad transmission, they were practically indestructible. All right, they had their couple little things that used to go wrong, but if you knew about them, it was nothing to get them fixed. But coming into the noughties, the cab in them was getting dated. They were a little bit uncomfortable on the road. So when you move up into the 7820 for me is a superior machine. The cab is much nicer on them. They're quieter. You have your front suspension then as well, which a lot of 7810s did, but the 7820 is a much nicer cab, quieter, more horsepower in the 7820. So it is, they're a more modern machine. It is a nicer machine. So it has everything that the 7810 has and more. So transmission options then extended to a simple power quad plus semi-power shift, or the auto power CVT, and later offers infinite ratios and is nicer to drive, but it saps more power and is relatively expensive to fix if it goes wrong. So that's the auto power transmission that we spoke about in our last video. Some of these tractors were fitted with the firm's smaller 6.8 litre engine, which, despite being a solid performer, is obviously less attractive. Everybody wants the 8.1 litre engine because it is bulletproof, fantastic engine, one of the best engines that John Deere have ever produced. So due to their simplicity, the 7820s give few mechanical problems if looked after correctly, obviously, as same with all tractors. The only downside is that they're probably a little bit big, a little bit clumsy compared to some of the other manufacturers offering in this power range. So if you look at the the Fendt that we spoke about, the 820, the 820 is certainly a bigger tractor than that. It probably is a little bit more cumbersome on headlands or around the yard, reversing a trailer or something like that. But still, the 7000 being manufactured and built, as an American heavy draft tractor, that's where its heritage, its breed comes from. So why didn't you pick the 7920, Alan? Because it is obviously has more horsepower again. It has the 8.1 litre engine, but yeah, the larger 215 horsepower 7920 is also a very popular tractor, and all of these came again with the 8.1 litre engine. However, the 7920 only was available with the CVT auto power transmission, which made it less desirable. Now, it was desirable to people who were potato farmers, if you're running a set of mowers maybe, but to your general, if you're doing haulage, if you're doing ploughing, stuff like that, the auto power wasn't very desirable transmission. So for that reason, that's why I picked the 7820 over the 7920, because it has that option of the obviously the power quad transmission, which is by far the best. So again, prices, when you look at the 7820, it ran it had a very, very short span, so there's not many of them out there. So from 2005 the 7020, 2005 to 2007, short build run, and it was superseded obviously by the 7030 series. So the value 5 or 6 years ago would have been around the 45 to 50,000 mark. Now, to get a good clean 7820 with, again, reasonable hours on it, you're looking up on 60,000 for them. They're sought after, especially with low hours, and one that's well minded. So moving on, we're going to pay homage to the blues, the blue machines we haven't spoken about yet. So New Holland, so the TS135. So production of New Holland's popular TS series started in 1998, with the standard model, of course, being the range-topping TS115. Power output was a modest 100 horsepower from the factory, but a hefty 7.5 litre 6-cylinder engine responded well to tuning, and many examples are running at considerably higher horsepower. In 2003, the TS tractors were superseded by the TSA range, 6-cylinder versions of which were fitted with a 6.75 litre NEF engine. Although smaller in displacement than its predecessor, these engines were tough and feature electronic power management, which gives a considerable performance hike for PTO and roadwork. So the TS135A is the largest tractor in the range, churning out 136 horsepower, but it does boost to well over 160 horsepower. Weighing 600 kilograms less than its power equivalent in the larger TM model, these tractors were gutsy little performers capable of running power-hungry kit such as front and rear mowers, as well as being well at home with a loader. Our tractors came with air brakes as standard. Production ran until 2007, when the T6000 range took over. This also featured the 6.75 litre engine. Prices for these machines now, you're looking at somewhere in a region of 30,000 euro for clean, low-hour models. So moving on to the very last one, and it's one that could not be left off the list, and that got a brief mention. So the New Holland TM155, very, very iconic model, very, very sought after, especially in Ireland. They are loved. So New Holland, they introduced TM range in 2000 to replace its 8000 series tractors, which had been around since the mid 1990s. These models were built only for 2 years before the brand refreshed the range, adding a few upgrades and introduced the higher horsepower models such as the TM175 and the TM190. It's very easy to spot them as they have the yellow decals on the bonnet. One of the most desirable options is the mid-range TM155, which serves up 155 horsepower from its 7.5 litre 6-cylinder engine, the same power plant used in the firm's earlier 6-cylinder TS tractors. So buyers had the option of the firm's power command full power shift box or the range command semi-power shift, the latter being the most popular. The simple box is efficient and smooth when it's running well, but it can require frequent calibration to keep it that way. Early TMs could drop a valve if the tappets weren't properly adjusted, but these were hydraulic on later tractors like the TM155. Production continued until 2007 when they were replaced by the T7000 series, which used a smaller 6.75 litre FPT engine from Fiat. So yeah, obviously a very, very popular machine, and good examples. Again, well over €30,000 here in Ireland, especially. I'm not sure about the UK, or would they have the same sort of status, cult kind of status in the UK? I'm sure they do. But in Ireland, they are widely loved, and there's lots of them running around, especially these days, tedding and drawing silage and probably mowing in that as well, and with a wrapper behind them or with a baler behind them. So yeah, they're everywhere. Fantastic machine. So that's it. That's the five tractors for this week. So that's the 10 in the range covered. If I disappointed anybody, if I left your favorite tractor out, drop it in the comments. But I can only speak about what I have experience with. I could have mentioned a few other models, but it would be unfair, as I don't, these are the top 10 that I've had a lot of dealings with. Obviously, John Deere and Case and Massey and the Dites I've had a lot more experience with than some of the others. But that's it. That's the 10. If you've got anything to say, if you think I missed a few, drop it in the comments. If you have any of these tractors that I spoke about, drop it in the comments. Let me know your dealings with them, your issues you had with them, how much you love them. That's really it. I just want to say thanks to everyone for watching. I'll be back next week as usual with another video. So yeah, it's going to be a busy week for me, and I will see you all next week. Okay, take care. Thanks for watching.